I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Pink and plastic. It's not fantastic. Hey, people, welcome. Plastic is everywhere and it's been piling up in the oceans that God has made for us, which causes a lot of problems, such as disrupting the food chain for creatures, causing sickness, injuries, and God knows what else. The sad truth is that this isn't a problem one person can solve on their own. We all need to pitch in. But that's not going to stop me from being less wasteful and inspiring others to do the same. Because if we all did even a little bit, it would make a difference. So here are some DIYs that you can do to use up your plastics instead of just throwing them out. I'm going to be turning these plastic containers into a piece of naturalistic wall decor. This project is cheap, I'll tell you that, but I definitely wouldn't call it easy. It took me a few hours to complete, I burned myself a few times, and it was a bit of a struggle to get everything looking decent. But in the end, I think it looked pretty good. However, next time I think it'll look even better because I would have learned from my mistakes and hopefully won't repeat them. So for this DIY, you're going to need at least 3 containers that are of similar shape and size. Twine or some other material that you can wrap around each container. You can get a pack of free things of jute twine at Dollar Tree for $1. Burlap or something that you can glue against the inside of the containers to give it a different texture. Walmart sells a roll of burlap that is 6 inch by 10 yards for $7. But again, it doesn't have to be burlap. Scissors, which is only $1 at Dollar Tree. A glue gun, which is only $5 at Wally World. You don't need to use hot glue, but it will be a lot easier because it dries faster and you won't need to worry about things coming apart as you're waiting for it to dry. But be very careful, you will burn yourself if you touch the hot glue right away. Now this is important, listen up. Make sure that you have plenty of glue sticks. You'd be surprised at how much glue one can use in a project like this, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And lastly, you'll need some sort of greenery, if you want it anyway. You can use any kind of fake plants that you want, but I want this to be kind of neutral, if that makes any sense. I'm planning on either selling it or giving it away to somebody, and I don't want to add too much color because that can scare folks off sometimes. You can get all kinds of fake plants for only $1 at Dollar Tree. The first thing I did was glue the twine around the containers. At first I just added glue for every single row, very carefully sticking the twine to it. Don't do this. It's way too slow, you waste a lot of glue, and you are more likely to burn yourself. I'm glad that God has given me the ability to be patient, but there is something to be said for finding quicker and better ways to do stuff. And I certainly wasn't smart enough to figure out a better way until God gave me an idea. He told me to just put a big glob of glue on one spot and quickly wrap the twine around the entire container before it dried. To my surprise, it worked. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that an idea from God worked though. Everything stayed put, it looked better, and I was able to get this done in a reasonable amount of time. I was originally planning on using some of the twine to make a hanging thing so that I could hang on the wall, obviously, but I ran out of twine, so I got this weird stretchy cord thing from the basement and glued it around one of the containers. I think it worked pretty well. Next up, I stuffed some of that burlap into them. I used hot glue to stick it down and scissors to get rid of the excess. Alright, the next step was to actually glue all these containers together. I made sure that I put on plenty of hot glue because these were going to be hanging on a wall and they were going to have stuff in it. I used clothespins to clamp them together so that they'll stick. After I'm sure they're stuck, it's time to decorate and customize. I'm not going to tell you how to arrange your plants because I don't know how, but I will tell you that putting the leaves on first will make things a whole lot easier. I used hot glue to make them stay, of course. And we are finished with this project. I'm going to be turning these leftover bottles from the last project into some cute little baskets. These are affordable and actually easy to make. You could put flowers or candy in them and give them away to people. I think that they would get a real hoot out of these. But if not, you can just keep them for yourself. So all you're gonna need is some plastic water bottles, scissors, various kinds of materials that you can wrap around a bottle, fake plants, electric tape, a glue gun, and glue sticks. First, I took my bottle and I cut out a would-be handle along the top. I just pinched a slit into the plastic and cut a section out as evenly as possible. I also cut off some of that said plastic to make it into a better handle. I put some electric tape on the handle so that the material I chose would stick to it. I just wrapped it around each end with the sticky part facing outwards. Make sure the tape is on tight. I then got some burlap and I cut out a piece so that I could wrap it around a handle. I then took some other material I had and made a little ribbon for the handle to make it look better. I held it together with electric tape and hot glue. I was really careful about how much hot glue I add and where. I didn't want to melt the plastic or burn my fingers again. Next, I got another kind of material and I cut out enough so that it could cover the inside of the bottle. When it comes to this kind of stuff, it's better to have too much than too little. You can always take away cloth, but it's difficult to add more. Just keep that in mind when cutting. After I get the length I want, I just hot glued each end of the material together. Then I just inserted the cloth cylinder into the bottle using tape to secure it. You don't need to worry about how all of this will look because it will be covered. I also cut out a square-shaped piece of cloth so that I can use it for the bottom. I used tape again to fasten it. Cut off any excess material you don't want using scissors. Be careful to not accidentally cut off some of the bottle. After all that's done, I taped the handle around the bottle. And do not fear, the burlap will cover up the tape. For the outside, I pretty much just did the same thing as I did for the inside of the basket, except I added extra burlap for the bottom. I carefully hot glued it together and cut off the extra. You don't have to cover up the bottom like this, you can just leave it and I don't think many people will notice. I decided to add a ribbon to the outside of the basket to make it cuter. The final step is to add the fake plants. Of course, they don't need to be fake. In fact, you don't even need to add plants either. And you also don't have to design your basket my way either. In this video, I'm going to be making some cute little toothpick holders out of plastic water bottles. What you will need is a water bottle, a jar lid, scissors, pliers, hot glue gun, cloth or some kind of material, and fake plants. First, I slit a hole in the plastic water bottle and I measured out how much I wanted to cut out using a toothpick for reference. Because, let's be honest, we need to be able to reach the toothpicks, and if the top is too high, you can't. After that's done, I took some of that burlap and wrapped it around the plastic, held it in place, and glued each end together. I didn't want to glue the burlap directly onto the plastic because it will melt and make it unusable, so be careful. Next, I just slipped the fabric over the bottle, making sure that the hole will be able to poke out. The only place I glued on the bottle was the edge of the hole because it was thick and wouldn't melt as fast. I used that part to make the cloth stick. After that, I took the jar lid that I had, placed it over some burlap, and I cut out the amount I needed. Remember, it's always better to go with too much than too little. I wrapped burlap around the lid using hot glue. I wasn't too worried about it melting because it was metal. I made sure that the cloth was on tight and I kind of alternated between each side of the lid. Because sometimes when I wouldn't have enough burlap to cover the lid on one side, I would go to the other to kind of bring more burlap for cover, if you know what I mean. For this part, I recommend using clothespins or some kind of clamps that you can use to make the cloth stay in place as the glue is drying, because having to keep your fingers on a pretty hot surface is not very pleasant. I then cut off the excess material and glued the gaps in the fabric shut. Alright, now that the hard part is done, we can move on to the fun stuff. All I did next was place the plastic water bottle top in the center of the burlap covered lid and poured a ton of hot glue along the edges to make them stick together. I know that it doesn't look all that great, but thank you Jesus for fake plants. You can use any color, type, size, and shape of plastic plants that you want and arrange them any way you'd like on the toothpick holder. And that's pretty much it for this DIY. This was such a fun and easy project. You can use this for a dinner party or some kind of festivity and add your own personal touch. And the best part is that you can make it however you want for any occasion. And guys, all this stuff can be found around your house. You don't need to use burlap, you can use old clothing, tablecloths, or whatever. You can also add jewelry, beads, or anything else instead of plants. Be creative, be bold, be different, because that's how God made you. Today, I'm going to be showing you how you can turn free plastic bottles into a unique, boho-inspired tree thingy. It took me a lot of time, patience, and Jesus to get me through this, but I am pleased with the result. However, I know that I'll do a lot better next time. So here's what you'll need. 3 water bottles, scissors, burlap, hot glue and glue sticks, bamboo skewers, wire cutters, electric tape, a pickle jar lid, and fake plants. First, you're going to use the scissors to cut out the upper part of each bottle. What I did here was just pinch a little slit into the plastic so that my scissors could fit. Then I would just cut the rest of it off. I got a pack of bamboo skewers from Dollar Tree and I used some of them to kind of form the skeleton of the DIY. I wasn't too particular about how much I used. I mostly chose enough until the bottle things could conceivably fit and stay on it without having to use too much hot glue. After I did that, I cut off the top part of the skewers because I wanted them to be shorter. I marked them off to be 8 inches long, but you can make them taller or shorter. You choose. I then took some of the electric tape and stuck them all together. When you put the bundle up vertically, make sure that the sticks are all flat on the ground before you do this. Otherwise, the structure will be unstable when you start adding things to it. Next up, add the burlap to the bottles. This part was the trickiest for me because I was using hot glue to hold it together, but sometimes the glue would melt the plastic and one of the bottles became unusable because it was too deformed. So if I had to do it again, I would just wrap some burlap around the bottle, use my hands to keep its shape, and just glue the 2 sides together. Then you could just slip it on the plastic like you're giving it a little shirt or something. If you need to glue anywhere, it's the part of the bottle where the hole forms because it's the thickest and won't melt as quickly. Also, here's a little side note. Add a lot of burlap to the bottom bottle because it'll look better and it'll make the structure more steady. Alright, so before you add the bottles, hot glue the pickle jar to the flattest side of the stick bundle and then you'll have a stable base. Because, as we should learn from the Bible, having a strong foundation is important not only for our lives, but in everything we make and do. Next, you just slip the bottles onto the bundle and use hot glue to get them to stay in the place you want them to. I try to make sure that I don't stick it onto the electric tape because I don't want to cause it to melt. Alright, so I'm going to be real with you. This was the point where I was planning on being done. I was just going to slap on some burlap on some water bottles and call it a day, but it didn't look that great. I was trying to figure out what I should do, but the Holy Spirit brought to my remembrance a tweet I saw that basically said that if a drawing is looking meh, just add some flowers and they'll improve it immensely. That was something I took to heart for all these years, and I decided to give it a try on this project. You don't need to add flowers if you don't want to, but I think that in this case, it made this better. You can use whatever colors, styles, shapes you want. Just make it your own because God made everybody different. And that's pretty much it for this little DIY. That took me over 2 hours to do. But nonetheless, I wouldn't be opposed to making a Christmas, Thanksgiving, or some other holiday themed tree. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. I hope it gave you ideas on what to do with your plastics. Speaking of which, I'm currently in the process of writing a book about different projects that you can make with plastics as well as other materials. If you would like to be updated on that, you can subscribe to my channel or follow me on Facebook and Pinterest. Tell me in the comments below what your favorite project was or if you have any ideas of your own. If you want a part 2, comment down below. Have a wonderful day and peace out.